Compressors, everybody's heard of them in production. They're one of the most important tools when used correctly. But what do they actually do on your track? Let's find out.
The fundamentals of a compressor, what they actually do, simply, is they compress the dynamic range, hence the name. They take the loudest points and the quietest points of a track or a sound or a song, and they make those closer together, so it keeps the overall dynamic range less, making everything sound louder. So in general terms, compressors are used on particular tracks to make that thing sound louder. That's why you also see them a lot in mastering chains, because they're great at gluing the mix together and making it sound louder when it's mixed incorrectly. They're a very in-depth bit of technology, but that doesn't matter for this video. We're talking about the basics of compressors. Whether you have a £300 compressor that you bought, or you've got your basic one in your program like I have here, they all look the same, they all have the same buttons initially, so that's all you need to know. So when you look at a compressor, they might come up in different forms. You might have them as a knee like this, or as like a grid. It doesn't matter what form, they all do the same things. The main three dials on a compressor will always be your ratio, your attack, and your release. Ratio essentially means how hard the compressor is going to work. A high compression value like 4:1 means the compressor is going to work harder and it's going to compress the sound more. A lot of people say you need a certain ratio for doing a certain thing, but I like to use 4:1 quite a lot, and if you need less compression, just turn it down. The attack dial is how long it will take for the compressor to work once the threshold is met. So in this case, for example, I have the threshold at -12.7. Once we go above -12.7, the attack determines how long it's going to take for the compressor to start working after we go above that. So lower attack time means the compressor works faster, means you compress that sound quicker. So if you want to compress the sound slowly, just put your release time up. If you want to compress the sound really quickly, almost as quickly as the threshold hits, put it down as far as you can go, 0.01. Some compressors might go further, some compressors might not really go as far, but that's all it means. How quickly do you want the compressor to work once that threshold is met? In simple terms, release is the opposite of attack. Release means how long do you want the compressor to wait after it's dipped back below the threshold to stop compressing completely. So lower release time means the sound will come back up quicker. So if you want to release the sound really quickly in a side chain, great way to do it is to lower the release time. If you want it to act really slowly and slowly release that compression, up the release time again. Really is that simple. And then we come to actually the threshold and output and gain reduction, all that sort of stuff. So essentially with a compressor at its basic, you pick the threshold, right? When the threshold is at 0 decibels, that means you have to go above 0 decibels before compression will start working. That's all the threshold means. So this dial, you essentially pick whereabouts you want the compression to act. So if you want it to compress a lot of the sound, lower this down, because that means a lot less sound has to come through before the compressor works. If you really only want it to work on loud stuff, make the threshold higher up, closer to 0, because then it will act on less. GR means gain reduction. That means how much of the input signal it's reducing as it's hitting the compressor, and then the output shows you how much is going out the other side. If you don't want to reduce your output sound, but you still want to use compression, makeup is a good way of doing that. That means it will bump the output to sort of try and be the same as the input, so you're not losing any sound overall, but it's not important. Another function you'll see on all compressors is the knee. The knee determines how quickly the compressor is going to take action. If you make your knee lower, that means compression is going to be added quicker as we get closer to the threshold. There's going to be compression being added as we reach the threshold. That's known as like a softer knee. If we go all the way up to 0 decibels, that means there will be no compression added at all to the sound until we reach the threshold set by you. If you have your knee this high, it's known as a really hard knee because no compression is added, and then as soon as we hit the threshold, all compression is added at the same time. So I like to keep my knee around 6 decibels, and it's not something you have to worry about too much unless you're going to get really in depth with compressors. Just sort of leave it where it is, but you'll see them in all compressors. And finally, we have the dry and wet. Now, this is just a common trait for any producer. You'll probably know what dry and wet is. It essentially means how much of the compressor do you want in the mix. So if you want the compressor to be affecting everything completely, you put the wet at 100%. Completely wet, 100%, means full effect of that particular plugin. Dry, 0% means the plugin's having no effect on the track. So if you want to mix it in slowly, you can do that. You know, you sort of set your percentage as you go up. But compressors, if you want them to act in the way where they compress that sound completely, 100%. And that is basically compressors. If you have a particular instrument that you want to make sound bigger and fatter, don't just turn it up, use a compressor. Compress some of that sound, it will make it sound louder overall. They're also a great thing to use in mastering chains to glue stuff together. But yeah, start using your compressors correctly. Just to show you that all compressors work the same fundamentally and you can actually use any of them, I've opened up another one here by FabFilter, which is the Pro C2. This is a plugin that you can add to your DAW separately to use in different functions, but again, they work in exactly the same way. So from what we've learned in the video about each thing, you can find them all on here just as easily. You've got your threshold number, you've got your ratio number, you've got your attack, and you've got your release. So here, all they are is just bigger dials in different locations, but they do exactly the same things. So once you know how it works, you can use any of them. Here, look, we've got our knee, and here it actually says hard to soft. So if you want a soft knee, you just move it right, and you want a hard knee, you move it left. When you have plugins like this, there are going to be more functions, more things you can do, but these fundamentals work exactly the same. So if you just want to mess around with it a little bit, you've got like a free demo, you've got a free compressor, whatever. They'll all work in the same way, and they'll all do the same things. They might show it slightly differently, but they always do the same thing. So you can use any compressor, and they do all work the same fundamentally. Now we've explained what those settings mean, you'll see them anywhere, but they all work the same way. So go out there, use your compressors, and try some cool ones out as well. You might find some that look a little bit nicer. This is just nice to look at, you know, that's why I use it a little bit. But really I use the Ableton compressor the most still, because it's just really easy to use, and it's just there, load it up quickly, less CPU usage, it's all good.